everybody. Stop share. Hi guys, it's 7:55. That means it is time for me to give stuff away. You guys know how I love that. So let's get started. While I'm doing this, you guys throw in the chat where you're from. There's a few of you in here now. I know it's a holiday week, but we are glad for those of you that showed up. And we got some good stuff to give away tonight, not just from last week. And but we got stuff to give away, or last month. We got stuff to give away from this month. So we got Washington County, Pennsylvania, Idaho, Michigan, Missouri, Ohio. Hey, everybody. All right. So I forgot to tell you guys last time what I was giving away to the VIP attendees. Now, I can't do the VIP attendee giveaway until the following month because there's a little bit of like comparison. I have to run some reports and all that. So that's why I have to do it after the fact. But so that's why we do it just a few minutes ahead of time. But I'm so excited, and this is going to be great for whoever wins, because last month we talked about natural disaster preparedness in your home and in your community. So this will help with that. Or tonight we're talking about food preservation. If you're all prepared, good for you, atta girl. You can use it to help you start getting your food preservation. Of course, that is kind of a prep too, getting your food preserved so you're ready for winter. But I have a $25 Layman's gift card to give away for our VIP attendees. So let me get my wheel of names. You know how, oh, that was the wrong button. You know how I love my wheel of names. I just think it's so much fun. So we'll make sure we are on the right wheel here. Okay, so I got my wheel up. Let's do a screen share. Hi, Colorado and Indiana, while I'm working on this. Let's see, basic share. We'll just let you see what all tabs I have open because I don't really have anything to hide. All right, everybody. This is everybody all VIP members that attended last month. So good luck. Here we go. Let's see who it is. And oh, Kendra Clark. I stopped calling them because there have been a couple of close ones. And I called it wrong once, and I don't want to do that again. So I'm not going to call until it stops and tells me who it is. Kendra Clark. I will I will send you an email to make sure that I have your correct mailing address, because I definitely want this gift card to get to the right mailbox. So check your email over the next week. Whatever email you have registered with your membership, that's the email that it will be sent to. I will be getting this in the mail to you. So just watch your email for that. All right. So icebreaker question, because we got 1 minute left. I know y'all are dropping stuff in the chat where you're from. Tell me what on your homestead, and you know this is the no judgment zone, so I want you to be honest. What on your homestead is getting neglected this summer with all the stuff that there is to do between harvesting and pruning and kids and families and dogs and cows and sheep and whatever else you got? What is getting neglected? For me, it is my worm bins. Thank goodness that they are kind of pretty low maintenance. And my poor hummingbirds, they're having to fend for themselves this year. Oh, I'm seeing floors, getting wood chips in the weeded gardens, the house. Yes, amen, sister. I hear that. Oh, somebody just moved, so they don't have a garden. So the whole garden is getting neglected this year. Flower beds are a disaster. Even the children noticed how bad they were. Oh, that's bad. So yeah, so you know what? And it happens to all of us. everybody, there's something that gets missed. And it's usually different every year for me, what gets missed. Last year, my hummingbirds were the best fed birds in the country, probably. And this year, poor guys, not so much. All right, so it is 8:01. I am 1 minute late getting started. Guys, we are ladies, I guess I should say, so happy that you are here. Welcome to the July National Virtual Gathering for the National Ladies Homestead Gathering. That's a big mouthful for me, but it's okay. I have a big mouth. That's why they put me in this chair. We are so glad you're here. And we did get started a little bit early. So if you came in and you felt like, oh, what did I miss? They're already talking. We do the drawing for the VIP attendees at 7:55. So at 7:55, we do one drawing from the VIP attendees from the previous month's National Virtual Gathering. And then I just run my mouth a little bit. So you have not missed a single thing from this month's gathering. And if you were the winner, then I will email you. And that winner was Kendra Clark. So Kendra, I hope you're on here. And let's see. All right, so that's it. So we do officially start at 8 o'clock. So we're rolling now. This is the official July National Virtual Gathering at the end of this gathering. So this is technically a webinar, right? Which means that I can see nobody. Y'all can see me, I can see nobody. And so that's really not how we like to operate, but because some of these gatherings get so incredibly large, we have to do it that way just for proper management of time and that kind of thing. So at the end of this gathering, we actually go to another Zoom meeting. So it's a typical, just like you would, like if your chapter did virtual gatherings during this last year, it's the same thing where you can see everybody and everybody can see you. And so we go to those breakout rooms and we break out by regions, because sometimes, like not so much with this one, we probably could all stay together for this one, although it might get a little large, but say we're talking about gardening, that's going to be very different where I live in South Carolina versus somebody who lives in Washington State or Oregon or, somewhere in the Pacific Northwest. So we have these breakout rooms that come afterwards, and you can go to those, and we'll put a link up at the end that tells you where to go. And we go over to this Zoom meeting, a meeting like you're used to, and you'll go into your room that's closest to you. And Jesse's going to be over there, and she'll help you get where you need to go if you're not familiar. But that's where you can have discussion. You can talk about, like tonight, you can talk about your favorite recipes or your favorite method of food preservation. And that's where this is like the nitty gritty learning. And then you go over there and you kind of like chit chat about it and talk about your favorite stuff. So we hope to see you in the breakout rooms after the gathering tonight. So next we are going to move on to our Atta Girls, and tonight Miranda is going to do our Atta Girls. Miranda, how are you tonight?
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Oh, you're lagging a little bit, Miranda. Ooh. Miranda, we may have to cut you out. You're lagging really bad. Y'all, let me tell you, I have had like.
Welcome everybody.
Miranda? All right, I think we lost Miranda. Okay, so Atta Girls, not gonna wait, or she's back.
Is it working?
So much better.
All right. If you guys can hear me, then I'm gonna go ahead with these Atta Girls.
Yeah, that's perfect. Go ahead.
So one of the things that we love to do with Ladies Homestead Gathering and part of our purpose is to encourage women through homesteading. And one of the ways we do this is by sharing our Atta Girls with each other, making sure that we're encouraging each other and sharing what's going on in our homesteads and celebrating with each other about these things. So over at our community.nlhg.org, we have a post up for the last month so that our ladies can share all of the Atta Girl moments that they're having. So I'm just going to read a couple of these to you guys because they're super exciting. So Daphne Robert Hamilton wrote, finished bracing our ICF walls and poured concrete this past Monday. Took off all the bracing and supports this morning. So Atta Girls all around for that. Getting your walls up for your home sounds like a really big accomplishment for the month. Jessica Smith posted, helped build a rabbit hutch for Mama and her babies. Atta Girl, Jessica, that's amazing. Let's see. Dina Warmner, if I butcher your name, I apologize, but got a temporary raised bed planted with potatoes and it's working. Yay! Got the garden planted, started our meat birds and half of our irrigation system. Also put up 24 quarts of beef stock and from the steers that we processed. I'm exhausted just reading what you accomplished this last month. So Atta Girl, that is fantastic. And then we've got Laura Lindstrom posted, I got my water feature redone, working, adding corkscrew Russian goldfish. It's just an old antique wash basin and hand pump, but I love it. And if you are on our private community.nlhg.org, you can go there, and she actually posted a picture of her water feature. It is beautiful. So Atta Girl, Laura. And then we've got Deb Foster, who said that this month, her Atta Girl is that all of her animals are doing well so far. She had 113-degree temperatures in the Pacific Northwest and not used to that temperature at all. So Atta Girl, Deb Foster, that's fantastic news. Marcella, Marcella, you know who you are. Lunch today will be picked zucchini with onions and tomatoes and corn and potatoes, all from the garden, except for the mustard. Way to go. I'm hungry just reading this. So ladies, these are fantastic. We had Heather Gully said that she just had another successful litter of livestock guardian dogs. Atta Girl, Heather. And I think that we've hit most of the Atta Girls, Ginger.
That is awesome. And Atta Girl to all of you ladies who submitted. And please, if you have something, you know, when I was running the Atta Girls in our local chapter, I used to always say that an Atta Girl can't even be something that you tried and failed at and learned a lesson. So if you have an Atta Girl, go on our community.nlhg.org that Miranda was talking about, and you know, let us know. It doesn't matter if it was successful, just the fact that you tried. And our Atta Girls are really part of our purpose, which, you know, our purpose statement is empowering women through homesteading. And that is one of the reasons that we like to call out these Atta Girls, because it's not just, you know, I'll give you an example. I had done something one day and my husband came home from work and I was like, look at this, look what I did. And his response was, I can tell you're very proud of that. And I was beside myself because that was not what I needed him to say. But here at NLHG, we love Atta Girls because we want to say to you, Atta Girl, we don't say, I can tell you're very proud of that. We are excited with you for what you've done, because that is part of empowering women through homesteading. And, you know, another thing that we focus on is just our mission statement, and that is to share knowledge, build community, and grow friendships. And, you know, what we're doing tonight, this is our sharing knowledge. We're sharing knowledge tonight about food preservation. Every month is something different. Your local chapter meetings, if you have a chapter in your area, that's what they're for, is to share knowledge. Building community. That's why this organization was started, to build a community, and the community has just grown and grown and grown. And then growing friendships. Let me tell you, some of my best friends are actually in NLHG and don't live anywhere near me, but my goodness, I don't know what I would do without them, because we are such kindred spirits and they get it. They absolutely get it. So so excited for all those Atta girls. Good job to everybody who, whether or not you put your Atta girl on to be read out loud, Atta girl to all of you who have tried something, and keep going, because that's what we like. All right, so I'm 1 minute behind, but I have this homesteading tip of the month. Oh my gosh, y'all, I saw this on one of my chicken groups and I had to share it because it's so fun. All right, let me just get it here, because it was too good not to share. I mean, absolutely too good not to share. You know how you see something and you're like, okay, I have to tell everybody in the entire world about this. Well, this is one of those. This lady posted that she didn't even realize what she was doing, and she was not trying to be ironic or funny or anything when she did this, but she says that her chickens get new nesting boxes every single month. And I'm going to show you how, because she goes to their local Sam's and she gets their free, you know how you can get boxes for free. Well, she goes, and she didn't even realize she was getting like chicken nuggets, chicken breasts, home style chicken bites. She said that the buffalo wings is the favorite, that's where they like to lay their eggs, that they use them just fine. And she said, everybody can laugh, but my ladies get new nesting boxes every single month. So if you're trying to think of some way to redo your coop, or maybe add a little humor to your homesteading life, try letting your chickens lay in a chicken nuggets box that you can get for free at one of the big wholesale stores, because you know they will beg you to take those boxes out. I just thought that was hilarious. I hope you guys enjoy that tip as much as I did. All right, so that's enough chit chat and jaw clapping from me. Let's get on to the main event. Tonight we are talking about food preservation, and Jen Anglen is with our North Kootenai chapter in Idaho. She has been homesteading for 4 years, but she has been learning to preserve food for over 16 years. And she has come tonight to teach us all the things. So Jen, we want to know all the things that you know in the next 30 minutes. That's the time frame that you have to impart on us all of the knowledge that you have gained over the last 16 years. And she, so Jesse's going to be running her PowerPoint tonight, and she's going to be speaking for us. This is the first time we've done it this way, so you guys bear with us. We have had so many snafus technology wise in the last little bit. I have been like shaking all day just thinking about how many ways this could go wrong. So y'all bear with us. We are doing our best, and y'all are always so kind with your words on the surveys and the comments and everything. So all right, Jen, if you are ready, we are ready for you. And there she is. Thank you so much, Jesse. If you're ready to go with the PowerPoint, and Jen, take it away.
Okay. Hey, ladies. I'm so excited to be here. This is like a topic that I'm a little bit nerdy about. I've been preserving food for, like she said, about 16 years. So in 2005, I embarked on the journey and fearfully canned jelly. I thought that I was going to kill people by canning jelly. So that was just the very beginning. And I had this friend who taught me how to can jelly. Her name was Nada. And she's like, just, it's easy. There's nothing to it. And I'm just like, but botulism. And I was like freaking out. But I wanted to learn because I love having a well-stocked pantry and I needed to work on a budget. And so I needed to learn this skill, and I wasn't passed on this skill. As a child, I wanted a big garden. I needed to know how to preserve food. So there was a big motivation there. I'm going to be reading off my PowerPoint. So hopefully eye contact doesn't look funny. I think the biggest thing about food preservation and getting some motivation to actually do it is finding your why. Why is it that you want to preserve food? And you can go to the next slide. I think that the why for me initially was on a budget, filling up my pantry with things that I did myself, but there was more than that. There was the desire to have healthy food, the desire to not spend so much money at the grocery store. There was a lot of whys for me. And this picture is, whenever I see a little bit of history in my canning day, it just gives me the willies. I just love it. I think it's so cool. This is from 1980. That was a year before I was born. So somebody canned in this jar, and that just makes me happy that I can be a part of history too. So let's go to the next slide. So again, on finding your why, the point of preservation is not necessarily to place food in suspended animation, but to extend the bounty of the fresh harvest season. So finding that motivation that you believe in personally, just like anything else in life, finding the motivation that you need to raise your kids the way you want to raise them, to raise your animals the way you want to raise them. You have to find that motivation that you believe in wholeheartedly that will keep you on the path to learning how to preserve food. Let's go to the next slide. Part of my why was that more sustainable way of life, preserving the bounty of my own harvest, of gifts that I got from people, or foraging finds. If I'm driving along the highway and I see a apple tree, maybe I stop and pick some apples. I wanted to pass that knowledge to my children. I did not get knowledge about preservation passed on to me, and that was super, super important to me, especially in the day and age that we're in right now, to pass knowledge on to my children. And keeping history alive by learning those sustainability and preservation skills that our ancestors knew that got them through things like the Great Depression. If they didn't have those skills, they wouldn't have made it through those times. And that is so important to me. Then there's the frugality and the necessity. Food is necessary for life, and having the skills to preserve it is something that may in the future, maybe even the near future, become a necessity. Let's go to the next slide. One of the hangups and one of the things that stresses a lot of people out about food preservation is the nutrient issue. And it is an issue. It becomes a stumbling block in food preservation. People are afraid of nutrient loss. And I guess where I've come to is I've tried to be a little bit more relaxed and realize that no matter how I preserve my food, no matter what method I use, the food that I preserve myself is going to be more nutritious than the shelf-stable food that I can get from the store. And so to me, it doesn't necessarily matter what method I'm using. I'm just going to use the method that's most convenient for that food or that time, that part of the season. But there are methods that are better for certain things. And for instance, fresh is best for vitamin C content. But if you want vitamin C in the winter, you're going to need to preserve the foods. So just do it, whatever way is most convenient at that time of your life, of the season, based on the tools that you have, whatever. There's a quote from the USDA Complete Guide to Home Canning. And I'm going to read that. I'll try to read it off of paper. Many vegetables begin losing some of their vitamins when harvested. Nearly half the vitamins may be lost within a few days unless the fresh produce is cooled or preserved. Within 1 to 2 weeks, even refrigerated produce loses half or more of its vitamins. The heating process during canning destroys from 1/3 to 1/2 of vitamins A and C, thiamine and riboflavin. Once canned, additional losses of these sensitive vitamins are from 5 to 20% each year. The amounts of other vitamins, however, are only slightly lower in canned compared with fresh food. If vegetables are handled properly and canned promptly after harvest, they can be more nutritious than the fresh produce sold. That produce sold in the stores is older than you think it is. So fresh is best, but if you want that produce during the wintertime, you're going to have to preserve it somehow. And then the comment at the bottom, fresh corn is not the same as cooked corn. And of course that's true, but it's going to have more nutrition than canned corn at the store. So I think just keeping that in mind is something that can help you get past that stumbling block of what's going to be nutritious. Am I losing too much nutrition? So whatever process you use to preserve your own harvest, fresh or seasonal produce, is going to be more nutritious than anything you find in the grocery store. Next slide, please. So methods, there are a gajillion methods for food preservation. And I have been such a nerd over the years trying to learn all of these different ways. And I have enjoyed some of them more than others. I have succeeded at some of them more than others. Water bath canning was the first method that I used, and I didn't start pressure canning until about 3 or 4 years ago, because I was so scared of the pressure canner blowing up in my face. And then a neighbor taught me how to pressure can, and it was such a blessing because it's really not that scary. So there's water bath canning, there's pressure canning, there's dehydrating, freezing, freeze drying, that's my favorite, vacuum sealing, pickling, lactic fermenting, salt curing, preserving in alcohol, sugar, or oil, and then of course the root cellar. Let's go to the next slide. When you are considering what method to use, I think that one of the biggest things is to consider what your lifestyle is. What kind of time do you have to set aside to preserve food? What is your ability? What kind of budget do you have for not only buying the foods to preserve or growing the foods to preserve, but buying the tools necessary to do that preservation? How much storage space do you have? There's a lot of things to consider when you consider what type of method you're going to use, and we'll go into more detail on the different methods. So we'll start with water bath canning on the next slide. Water bath canning is the most time-consuming method of food preservation. It is, probably the oldest method in a sense. Well, no, probably fermenting, but it is the most time-consuming process. It moves at a very fast and very steady pace, and it takes a lot of time. When I can applesauce, we usually do about 200 quarts, and that usually takes a full 2 days. And so it just takes a lot of time. You are in the kitchen, you are slaving over the hot stove all day. And it is such a joyful process because you're putting that food that you've either gleaned or you've harvested yourself, you've grown, you've purchased, whatever it is, you are putting that food up for your family, and it's going to last throughout the winter, which is amazing. The upfront cost for water bath canning is mostly reusable items. You have your canning pot that you'll be able to use forever and ever. You have your canning jars. You do have to replace the lids unless you use Tattler lids, which I don't know if everybody has heard about those, but Tattler lids are actually reusable canning lids. They are 2 pieces. They have a plastic ring, and I'll just grab one here. They've got a plastic ring, and then they've got a rubber ring, and that rubber ring goes on there, and it goes on the jar. And then the trick with canning with a Tattler is tightening it the way you would normally tighten it, but then opening it a quarter turn, and then you can it. And when it comes out of the water bath canner, which is very different than using the disposable lids, is you actually tighten that down nice and tight, and then you let it set, and then it will seal. So there's a little trick to using those, but they are reusable. So it's a huge cost savings over time because they are an initial pretty hefty investment. Pictured on this slide is our sweet zucchini pickles. I decided I would try those. That was out of the Ball Blue Book. I would reduce the salt next time. They were really salty, but they are really good. So let's see, next slide. I think the next slide is just a picture. I can with my kids. I think that anytime that I want to learn a new skill, whether it's raising animals, whether it's preserving food, whether it's cooking a new recipe, I want my kids to be involved, because that's the whole point. I want them to learn how to do these things, because I want them to be able to do it themselves and pass it on to the next generation. So this is us canning apples on our back porch one year. And the next slide is a little bit more of that. I think we can flip through a couple of slides here with the pictures. So yeah, and then yeah, that year we got a lot of apples. It was insane. We'd canned so much applesauce. I can go to the next slide. Okay, so this is one of my little funny things. Canning makes your kitchen hot. It really does. You're just boiling. Everything's going all day long. So can outside the box or outside the window. I actually used a turkey fryer and use that to boil my fruit. So then I can just lift up the basket of the turkey fryer and my fruit is strained and ready to go in the applesauce maker. So that was a fun little trick, and it was easy to do, and it kept some of the heat out of the kitchen. Go ahead to the next slide. And again, don't be afraid to get those kids involved. Your joy will be contagious. You'll learn all those lessons about the value of preparing and putting up your own food. And every time you pop a jar, you'll be able to exclaim how you did this. And that is just so special. We talk all the time about how we're eating a lot of the things that we prepare ourselves. Next slide. Here's just some of the food produced on canning day. This one was apple butter and applesauce. So, and then next slide, we'll go to pressure canning. So this is the second type of, other than dehydrating, this is the second method that I learned. Pressure canning is a super valuable skill. Number one, because you can do meat, you can do vegetables, I love doing broth, because having that broth not in the freezer where it's instantly accessible is super awesome. So pressure canning is another of the most time consuming processes. It moves at a slower pace than water bath canning, because the cycles are about 90 minutes as opposed to 15 to 30 minutes with water bath canning. So there is a lot more rest involved in pressure canning. You're doing a lot smaller batches. You want to be sure, one of the things with pressure canning is be sure to have your pressure gauge tested every single year. I take it to my local extension office and they test it for free. I actually just took 3 canners in to the extension office and they tested all the gauges. So that's really important, just to make sure that you are canning your food for long enough. Next slide would be the tools necessary for pressure canning. Upfront cost, again, is mostly reusable items. You can still use Tattler lids. You can still use your normal Ball disposable lids. You're going to need your jars, your rings, all of your canning tools for lifting and all of the funnels and everything. But again, mostly reusable items. Next slide is dehydrating. And I didn't touch on which foods to preserve with those 2 methods. So fruits, back to water bath canning. That's for fruits, cherries, zucchini relish, apple butter, tomatoes. Water bath canning is not for vegetables, meats, or broths. So that's pretty important to know. And then the pressure canning, that's where you can your broth, your meat, your beans, your vegetables. So dehydrating. I love my Cabela's dehydrator. It has square trays. I used to have a Nesco dehydrator and that had circle trays. I didn't like that one. It worked. I had it for a lot of years, but I didn't like the circle. It just didn't fit stuff very well. This one, the time involved is less. You've got the prep time to cut and soak your vegetables in lemon juice and stuff so that they don't brown. But then you really just forget about it until they're done, and then you can package it. Upfront cost, mostly reusable. The cost of the dehydrator is a little bit more expensive than your water bath or pressure canning. But so the upfront cost is just a little bit more depending on which dehydrator you get, or maybe you do it yourself. There are tons of different methods for do-it-yourself dehydrators that you can get a lot of food crammed into, which is something that's in the works for us. We have the picture there of the drying rack. This is fantastic. It pops down to a very small size. Hopefully you can see this. I can't see myself. And then whoop, and then it pops up and it just hangs. And this thing is great for drying all of my herbs, fresh herbs that I pick from the garden. I'll dry in here. I'll dry my elderberries in here. I'll just leave them in here for like 2 or 3 weeks. And then also I wilt my comfrey or any herbs that I'm going to be infusing into oil. I will wilt them in this drying rack, and it's fantastic. It was like $16 on Amazon, so it's super cheap, and it has a lot of space in it. And dehydrating, one of the things with dehydrating is you don't need to vacuum seal dehydrated foods because they still have moisture in them, so they don't need to be vacuum sealed. They will last a bit longer if they're vacuum sealed, but you don't need to. Next slide is freezing. And hopefully I'm doing okay on time. Freezing is another method that's very simple and not super time consuming. And it also has one little perk that I love, and that's that you can freeze whole meals. So say you just butchered a bunch of chickens, chop a bunch of it up, make a bunch of chicken dishes that are raw, and then you can put them in the Instant Pot, and it's super, super easy. My favorite containers are these ones, and they're super sturdy. I got them on Amazon. There's a link in my handout, but these are fantastic because you just pop the frozen food out into the Instant Pot in the morning, set the timer to, start cooking it right before dinner, and then you literally have dinner. So simple. I love those containers. So freezing, your cost is a little bit higher because you have to have the freezer. But depending on where you get your freezer, if you get it on Craigslist, it's not going to be as expensive. Then you've got your consumables like bags, saran wrap, paper. Using butcher paper is super important because then you don't get the freezer burn on your meats. That picture is a bunch of venison. And then I also do meatloafs just like that, where I'll wrap up the meatloaf in saran wrap and then put butcher paper over it, and they last forever. Then we have, like some of my favorites. I love doing mashed potatoes. Loose spinach in the freezer is really great if you have it in like Ziploc bags. It won't last as long. It'll get freezer burnt a little bit faster, but you can scoop out with a measuring cup and dump it in your smoothie or dump it in your omelet or your quiche or whatever. And it just makes it super easy because it's super loose. Refried beans I love doing in the freezer. And then again, prepared freezer meals are great. Let's see, there is, next slide is freeze drying. And this is where I really geek out. I can do a whole talk on freeze drying at some point if somebody wants me to do that. It's the least time commitment, which for me, busy mom of 4, I homeschool, we have a lot of animals. We just farrowed 2 litters of pigs. Like I don't have a ton of time. And I love freeze drying. It is literally set and forget. The process that's used is called sublimation. And what happens is moisture in a sub-zero vacuum goes from solid to gas immediately instead of from solid to liquid to gas. Moisture is released from food as a gas and then is immediately sucked to the wall of the vacuum. And the process just repeats over and over until all the moisture is gone from the food. It's the least time consuming. You literally prep, set, forget, and then package. It's the highest upfront cost, but that quantity of food that you get for your effort is huge. The cost involved, like as far as consumables, would be your jars, which are reusable, and I reuse those disposable lids over and over and over and over again for vacuum sealing. As long as you pop them carefully and they don't bend, they work forever. And then if you wanted to do Mylar or vacuum seal bags, those are disposable, obviously. freeze-dried food does need to be vacuum sealed. So in addition to your freeze dryer, you would need to have a vacuum sealer as well. Some foods absorb that moisture back in very, very quickly. And so I seal those things with an oxygen absorber as well. Most things I don't do with an oxygen absorber because we do use them very quickly. But if you don't use them quickly, you'd want to use an oxygen absorber as well. In this picture, I love freeze drying pureed fresh greens. So they're literally completely fresh. I add a little bit of water in my blender and I just whiz them. And then I put that pulp on a freeze dryer tray and I freeze that, and we call it greens powder, and I use it in smoothies. I use it in soups. I hide this in so many different things. Oxygen absorber or moisture absorber. So an oxygen absorber, I just got that question. An oxygen absorber will actually suck the oxygen out of the bag. And from that oxygen, the food will start to rehydrate a little bit. A moisture absorber will absorb the moisture as well. But if you suck the oxygen out of that environment, you've sucked you're not going to have the moisture accumulation. So I've just been using oxygen absorbers, and I do that for all of our backpacking food. The big reason I got a freeze dryer was for backpacking. We do 9 to 12 day trips, and we need lightweight food because we are packing for a family of 6. It takes a lot of food. So the freeze dryer has been fantastic to make homemade meals that we can eat in the woods. So as far as vacuum, as oxygen absorber or moisture absorber, they both do relatively the same thing. If you've got a lot of moisture in the food, you'd want to use a moisture absorber. But if with freeze drying, you don't have moisture in the food anymore, so you want to use an oxygen absorber. Let's see, next slide on freeze drying. So with freeze drying, the setup cost, like I said, is the highest, although it may be lower than a root cellar, depending on how you do your root cellar. It's about $3,300 to $4,000 for a freeze dryer. But like I said, it really does, it works for its money. Freeze dryers are a fantastic investment. I definitely recommend a medium 4 tray or a large 5 tray. I have the 4. I wish I had the 5. The quantity of food in the 5 tray is so much more than in the 4 tray that I really do wish that I had the bigger one, but I do have a large family. One of the costs involved in freeze drying is obviously the cost of running the machine, which is about the same as running a freezer. I haven't seen a massive increase in my electricity bill the months I use the freeze dryer and the months I don't. So if that is a deterrent, it really isn't that big of a cost difference. And again, with freeze drying, the nutrient loss, because that obviously is a concern, the nutrient loss is less than in canning or dehydrating. Some say that it's the best way to retain vitamin C, since vitamin C is damaged by heat. One of my favorite things to do in the freeze dryer is ginger, our backpacking meals, refried beans. It's like instant, just add hot water and you have refried beans. It's fantastic. Meat, but not raw meat. So in this picture, this is raw meat. I did not prefer doing raw meat. Do I keep the freeze dryer in the kitchen? I keep my freeze dryer in the laundry room. It's too loud for the kitchen. I had a friend who is buying a freeze dryer and she was thinking of putting it in the dining room area where they have their Bible studies and stuff. And I'm like, I wouldn't do that. It is pretty noisy. So you want to put it somewhere where the noise isn't going to super bother you. So probably not in the room where you're watching movies or the room where you're having meals. We did have it in the kitchen for a while and it's just really loud. So we have it in the laundry room. And then Skittles are super fun in the freeze dryer. Things like apple pie filling in the freeze dryer don't work quite as well. And I'm honestly not sure, because Skittles are really high sugar. Apple pie filling is really high sugar. I'm not sure why, but apple pie filling and some other higher sugar content things don't powder. They kind of turn to this hard brick. So like apple pie filling, it didn't have luck with that. I have to end up going and putting it through a blender, or else it's these big chunks. But I do fruit, homemade cheese sauce, shredded cheese is fantastic freeze dried, ice cream sandwiches like in the picture. Greens, yogurt is really good. It will not rehydrate the same consistency as when you put it in. It'll be a little bit runnier. I do rice, I do eggs. So there's lots of different things you can freeze dry. It's super fun, super fast and easy. And then if anybody has any questions about any of these things, we can talk about those at the end too. But I want to do a little cost analysis. So as far as the different sizes of freeze dryers, because I know with everything that's going on right now, freeze drying is one of those food preservation methods that people are getting really curious about. So the small freeze dryer can process 4 to 7 pounds of food. It costs $2,195. The medium can process 7 to 10 pounds of food and cost $2,695. The large can process 12 to 16 pounds of food and it costs $3,395. So if we compare those capacities relative to the cost, the small is 399 pounds capacity, dollars per pound of capacity, whereas the large is only $242 per pound of capacity, a $157 difference. Now that's just with one load, but you get what I'm talking about. The cost difference per pound of food capacity is quite a bit different when you go and you get the bigger machine. And that's not counting the difference in the time spent and the electricity used, because the electricity used for both machines is going to be the same. You're going to get a smaller amount for the same amount of electricity with a small machine. So let's see, to the pickling slide. I think that's the next slide. Yes. Okay, so pickling. I have not done a ton of pickling. Well, this picture doesn't say that, does it? This was one year, last year, we did a ton of dill pickles with a neighbor and super, super fun. It's the first time I've ever done pickles and they turned out amazing. They were super fun to do. So pickling is basically the same as water bath canning. So as far as cost and time involved, it is a very time consuming process. This took us all day. This picture is what we brought home. And then they had, I think we did double what you see in the picture. The way that it preserves the food is the acidity is too high. It is high nutritional preservation and it even adds nutrition in some cases. And you can do vegetables with pickling in water bath. You cannot do water bath vegetables without that vinegar and vinegar salt content. And then let's see, lacto fermentation. So this one, as far as time involved, is a lot less because it's really prep, wait, weigh it, and then wait the time that it takes to wait. It's super, super easy. We have been doing a lot of sauerkraut. So I take the cabbage, I weigh it, I add 2% salt to the cabbage. So if it's 200 grams of cabbage, I use 2 grams of salt. So it's a very easy ratio to do. And what I do is I take a cabbage and I slice it up super, super thin. The thinner you get it, the less time it's going to take you to preserve it. And then I mash it. I have this pounder that my husband made me on his lathe. And I just pound that cabbage until the liquid starts to come out of it. And then I pack it into jars. And I love these pickle pipes. I kind of got them because the name was cute, but so they're just this, like, this is literally what it is. So this has a tiny little hole in it. And then you've got your weight that you stick down into your jar. And then you put that gasket on there and you close it up. And if you leave enough headspace, you're not going to get anything leaking out the top. If you leave too little headspace, you will get leaking out the top. But this makes sauerkraut so easy. I haven't done any other vegetables because we're just in love with sauerkraut, but I do need to expand and do more vegetables. Let's see. This is the sauerkraut, then specific to sauerkraut because that's what I've done, but it adds nutrition to your food. This is how pioneers used to preserve their food. They did a ton of fermentation because they didn't have the hundreds and hundreds of jars that we have. And so they would have a crock of fermenting vegetables. And it increases that vitamin and enzyme content, which helps with your digestion. it is a fantastic way to preserve food, and it's something that I am definitely looking to learn more about in the next years. Let's see, the next slide. With sauerkraut, you just leave it, you pound it till the juice is released, you pack it into those quart or pint jars, with making sure the liquid is over the vegetables, add the weight, the pipe, the ring, and then let it sit on the counter for 2 to 5 days until it's to your liking as far as the taste. And then we can refrigerate it for literally up to 3 months. So it's fantastic. It's a great way to preserve vegetables. Okay, so salt curing. This, my husband is starting to learn salt curing, and this is us butchering our first hog. Her name was Fast Food. We name our butchering animals meat names. So he is learning this. So I honestly don't know a ton about salt curing, except that with pigs, you can literally do an entire hog without refrigeration. You can cure the entire thing with no refrigerator. And that is why we got pigs, because they're a good meat source. They're easy to raise, they're disease resistant, and they can be preserved with no refrigerator. The cost is minimal because literally all you need is salt. And we have been using, instead of getting nitrates from the store, we've actually been using celery powder, which we could grow ourselves. We did buy it from the store this time because we didn't have a ton of celery, but the method of preservation is too high of salt content. Let's see, and this is also fermenting, making prosciutto. He is going to be learning the Italian art of making prosciutto, which is going to be fantastic. Funny story. We had our first fast foods ham. We had it hanging, and it's supposed to hang 8 months. So it was going to, we butchered in the fall, and it was going to be our Easter ham. 2 days before Easter, my husband goes out to the carport where it was hanging and looks for it, and it's gone. We had just had a windstorm, and it fell off the hook onto the ground. Last month, my son found the ham sock in the pasture. It was so sad. Our dog got it. So our first ham, went to our dog. Very sad. Next, let's see. So next slide, preserving in oil, alcohol, and sugar. This is minimal prep. You literally just put it in the jar, put the alcohol, the vinegar, or alcohol, vinegar, or oil in the jar with it, and shake it every day. It is that easy. So depending on how much of the either medicinal, this is a great way to make medicine. I make healing Comfrey salve, and I grow the Comfrey, and then I cover it in olive oil, and I let that sit for 6 to 8 weeks, and then I make a salve out of it. Fantastic way to draw the medicinal compounds out of fruits, vegetables, herbs, and medicinal roots, leaves, all of those things. It's a great way to make your own medicine, which is something that I keep adding to that base, because who knows when I'm going to need to completely provide my own medicine for my family. So the only cost really involved in that is the oil, alcohol, or sugar. You can do medicines like herbs, flowers, sap, berries, fruits. So yeah, this is a good one that I really, really do enjoy using, and researching, what kind of herbs that you have, or what kind of roots that you have that you want to preserve in alcohol, oil, or vinegar. Making chive vinegar. Put your chive blossoms that you have to deadhead off there anyways, put them in vinegar and make yourself a really tasty vinegar for your salads. Super fun. And it's really pretty because it turns pink. Next slide is, again with this, if using fresh herbs, wilt them first so that moisture content isn't too high in your oil, alcohol, or vinegar. And then cover it with a cheesecloth or a tea towel. You don't want to screw a lid on, because then, your evaporation cycle will end up, instead of evaporating the moisture out of the jar, it will keep it in the jar. So I cover it with a towel. So the next slide is root celery. This is something that we should be digging a root cellar next year, and I'm super excited about that. And we keep going through, okay, which location? You don't want it to be in too sunny of a spot, because then the sun is heating the ground, which is then thereby heating your root cellar. So we're going through a lot of different brainstorming about where we're going to put the root cellar, how we're going to do it, what's the most cost-effective way to dig and support a root cellar, how are we going to do the roof, are we going to make sure it's 4 feet under the ground? So it's definitely a process. This is one of the bigger projects, but once you have that built, the maintenance is very small. The time commitment in root cellaring is really minimal, except for the build. You're monitoring the humidity levels, you're cleaning the space annually. The cost of digging and building the root cellar can be quite substantial depending on where you live and whether you have a hill you can recess it into. It preserves by keeping things dark and cool. You can preserve root vegetables, apples, tubers, pears. This is like total root cellar lust right there. Like seriously, can you imagine having that root cellar? Can you imagine doing that? And just how, I would just feel so in love walking into that root cellar. Like I did all this and I'm so proud of myself. With root cellaring, we've learned you need to make sure the walls, the ceiling does not collect moisture. So don't have metal walls, metal roofs. You don't want it to be raining on your food. You want to make sure the floor has good drainage. You need to store your vegetables like onions, which off gas, near the cellar vents, which vent out through the roof. So the gases vent out and instead of staying near your other vegetables like your squash and your cabbage. So certain rules apply when picking that space and picking a design for your root cellar. So it's definitely a brainstorming project, and it really is dependent on what your land looks like. So let's see. I think, okay. So I think I showed you most of my favorite tools. The Tatler lids, the Pickle Pipes. And then I should have showed this on the other slide. This is the book that my husband is using to learn how to preserve the old-fashioned way. As far as meat goes, it's called The Art of Making Fermented Sausages. And there is the title and author in the notes or in the chat. We do not have a ceiling in our root cellar yet because we don't have one yet. But the plan now is to get those giant concrete Lego blocks that you see like at nurseries around their bark pits. We're going to build it with that in the hole, and then we're going to make a form over the top and pour concrete over the top. And then potentially one of the things that we've thought of is maybe building the barn over the root cellar. We're not going to have animals in the barn. We're going to basically have a barn for food storage for the animals. And, like the tractor will be in there. So that's kind of the plan right now, but this plan just keeps evolving and evolving just as we learn things. And that's one thing with the root cellar is make sure you do a lot of educating yourself before you do the root cellar, because you don't want to make a big mistake that then makes your root cellar not usable. So I've got a little list here of my favorite foods, and I think I went through most of these. I love pressure canned broth and meat. I love freeze-dried ginger, refried beans, yogurt, berries, hot cereal that's already got sugar in it. That's fantastic, especially for quick breakfasts or breakfast on the go with camping and backpacking. Squash. I love freeze-drying squash. I use it as a spaghetti sauce. I have a kid who's allergic to tomatoes, so I actually make spaghetti sauce out of freeze-dried squash. I use it for Indian food where I make a curry out of squash with tons of different herbs and spices in it. Canned applesauce. This is water bath, canning applesauce, cherries, my favorite. Apple butter, zucchini relish is another favorite. That's in the Ball Blue book. Freezer meals. I love doing chicken dishes, mashed potatoes, soups, those loose fresh greens, and meatloaf. Those are some of my favorite freezer meals to keep in stock. And then I think that's it. So I'd be happy to answer questions while Jessie flips through the last few slides.
So there was a question, Jen, about unused metal canning lids and the life on those. Is there like a rule of thumb for like 5 years, 10 years? I got a stockpile of canning goods from my mother-in-law and from her mom. So my kids' great grandma
and I've been using them. They'll fail a little bit more often than the new ones. But really, I haven't noticed a huge difference. If you just go, let's see, I don't have a canning lid in here, so I will open this one. So if you go and you poke the rubber on your canning lid, if your fingernail can kind of go into it, like you can feel it go into the rubber as opposed to just denting it, then you probably shouldn't use it. If it's squishy at all, like where it kind of can rub a little bit, then you don't want to use it. But I haven't found very many canning lids that do that. And even with that, use your canning lids for vacuum sealing. If you do any vacuum sealing, use those used canning lids for that. So don't throw your canning lids away. Like, I know that's what everybody says, but they work fine for vacuum sealing. And these are actually vacuum sealed kefir grains, water kefir grains. My kids love to snack on these. Nice probiotic boost. So yeah, I hope that answers that question.
Yeah. And is there a rule of thumb about rehydrating food?
So you can get all scientific about it. And the way you do that, like I think you're talking about freeze drying, correct?
The question is, how do you rehydrate the food? I assume that was during
Yeah. So with rehydrating, you can get scientific about it in that you can weigh the food before it goes into the freeze dryer. And then when you take it out, you can weigh the water that drains out of your freeze dryer and then subtract that. And then you get the difference. So then, however many jars you fill with that freeze dried food, you can calculate how much weight of water you need to add back into that food. I personally don't do that. I just wing it. And, I have refried beans in there. I dump the beans in a bowl and I add hot water until I like the consistency. So it just kind of depends on your cooking style. I am not a recipe follower, so I just wing it. With something like, if you were to do raw meat, which I don't recommend because it turns out, if you really like a very well done steak, then go ahead and freeze dry raw meat. I don't. So I don't freeze dry raw meat. But if you were to rehydrate a chunk of raw meat, you would leave it in a Ziploc bag full of water until it feels like it doesn't have any hard spots in it. And then you would pour off the excess water. So I hope that helps.
Yeah, and I'm sure there are different resources that you can find online for that too.
Yes, absolutely.
So just a couple of things from my personal knowledge. I'm like you, I geek out over freeze drying, and I am not lucky enough to have a freeze dryer, but for those of you that are like me and just really, really want one, Harvest Right is a brand. We are not sponsored by them. We don't endorse them. They don't endorse us, but they do give away a freeze dryer once a quarter, I think it is. So if you just Google Harvest Right freeze dryers, you can find their website and just look for their win a freeze dryer.
Yes. And I also have too, there's a picture in the link, the Google Drive link. If somebody wants to use a referral, I've got a phone number on there to call, and you can use my name as a referral. Or if you know somebody who has a freeze dryer, please use them if they have a Harvest Right freeze dryer. And you will get an extra package of Mylar bags for free for using a referral. And then the person who referred you gets a credit to use in the store. So that's a cool thing. Like if you have a friend with a freeze dryer, ask them, and then you can call Harvest Right with their name, or you can use mine.
Yep. So that's just one thing, if you can win one, go win it. If I can't win it, absolutely. I want one of you ladies to win it. So
I've entered every year.
I know, but it's okay. So I think it's once a quarter. You can look on there. It'll tell you in the sweepstakes rules what the dates are. So there's that. And for dehydration, which I do participate in, one of our favorite things to do, and this is great for kids because they're a lot of fun. You can make, we call them wacky fruits or crazy fruits. Just take your favorite fruit combinations. Like we love kiwi strawberry or strawberry banana, and you take a slice of one and a slice of the other, and you stack them and you put them in your freeze dryer.
I love that.
And then in your dehydrator, and then when they dehydrate, they fuse together. So you've got like a strawberry kiwi chip or a mango pineapple or whatever it is. You can stack them up and they just fuse together. And so you've got these fun little multi-flavored bites. And so that's really easy to do and fun. You can work with your favorite flavor combinations on those. It's a fun little snack. So
yeah,
that was all the Q&A. And we do have a special guest. Cindy Ball is here, everybody. Round of applause.
So funny. Jen, I have to say, I am super impressed with your presentation. There was a couple things I'm like, oh, I am so getting that, because I live in such a small cabin, and you know, food is precious around here in the mountains, but I've been getting into herbs, especially. I love that thing that lays flat
yes,
and then expands, because I don't have a whole lot of room, as you can see in the background. That's my whole house right there. So super cool. And I think we should have you come back and talk about taking multiple children on a 9 to 10 day hike with everything. Like, I was so impressed with that. I thought I was good just getting my kids out for an all day hike, but you know, the overnight stuff, I was very impressed, very impressed. So yeah, presentation full of all kinds of stuff. And thank you so much for sharing all that. Little envious.
You're welcome.
I missed that. But you know, when there's only one of you, there's not a whole reason to have all that stuff. But great presentation. So thank you very, very much for being with us tonight. So yay.
You're welcome. Thanks for having
Huge
me.
round of applause. I'm sure you can hear from all of us that listen to you tonight. So.
Jen, somebody's asking about, they say they also have a tomato allergy. Could you share that? Would you email me that recipe for the pasta sauce with the squash, and I can put that up for everybody in that way. And we'll share that with everybody, not just with our VIP members. There will be a handout available for our VIP members, and this recording will be available next Wednesday for our VIP members. You just log in to your account on nlhg.org, and you can find it there under the I believe it's the events tab, and it'll say National Virtual Gatherings. You can find it there. If you can't find it, shoot an email to media@nlhg.org and I'll help you with that. So now my favorite time, it's giveaway time. So we're going to start with, who are we going to start with? We're going to start with all VIPs. Why? Because VIPs are very important people. So we're going to do, as we do almost every month, a magazine bundle. This is just one that's going to be in there. I just grabbed one because there's no need to hold up multiple magazines. Y'all know what a bundle is. All right, so let's see here. All VIPs. Okay, so this is anyone, whether they're on the gathering tonight or not. If you are a VIP member, your name is on this wheel. So good luck, everybody. This is for the magazine bundle for all VIP members. Not even gonna guess because I can't read that. Samantha, Sam, all right. La Chapelle from Dawson Forsyth, awesome. I will be sending an email to you to make sure that I have the correct mailing address, because we want to make sure that you actually get what you're winning. All right, so this is all attendees. If you are here tonight, you are in this drawing. This is Canning Essentials, jam-packed with essential tools, techniques, and recipes for fruits, veggies, jams, pickles, salsas, and more. It's a nice book. It's got recipes, all kind of stuff in it. All right, so this is everybody that's here tonight. Let me get that right wheel up. Here we go. All right, and a screen share. Bada bing, bada boom. That's how we do it. And good luck, everybody. Canning Essentials is going to Joan Bishop. All right, Joan, watch your email that you registered with. for this gathering, and I will be sending you an email to make sure that I have your mailing address. And then for the gathering next month at the beginning at 7:55, for all VIP attendees, and again, I apologize, I can't do it right now, but I do have to run some reports and make sure that I get everybody going for all VIP attendees. So if you attended tonight and you are a VIP member, canning for a new generation. This is updated and expanded edition, bold, fresh flavors for the modern pantry. This is a big book with lots of nice stuff in it. So this is what I will give away at 7:55 next month. Okay, so now we're getting ready to do breakout rooms. I'm going to give you the link in just 1 second. All right, but there's one thing that I want to tell you first. Okay, first of all, if you've been to a breakout room before and you talked at all, you are now qualified to moderate a breakout room. So if you want to moderate a breakout room, we would love, love, love to have you help us by moderating a breakout room. We've got great moderators that help us, but we almost only had had to split the country down the middle and have 2 breakout rooms tonight because things happened, but we scrambled and some ladies stepped up and some of our executive staff stepped up, and we're going to have more than 2, but we need more people on the list. It's called. So if you would be willing to moderate a breakout room, and if you've been to a breakout room, you know what that means. Email me at media@nlhg.org. We need you. All right. So if you are not going to a breakout room, then hang out, because I will give you the link to register for next month's gathering in just a minute. So I'm going to give 3 minutes for everybody to get to the breakout rooms. Now, I'm getting ready to put the breakout room link in the chat. There is a password, guys. There is a password. I'm so sorry about last month. We did not know that Zoom had made that change. The password is 070721. It's the date for today. And that's what the password is going to be going forward for the breakout room. So when we put the link in, you'll know what the password is. It will be the date of whatever that day is. So today's password, and I'll put it in the chat too, is 070721. So when you click on that link and head over to the breakout room, use that password 070721. It'll get you in. Jesse is waiting on you to help you get in your breakout rooms. If you are not going to the breakout rooms and you want the link to register for next month, if you go to the breakout rooms, we will give you the link in the breakout rooms. Thanks so much, guys. Go into the breakout rooms if you're going. If you're not, hang out. I'm going to give them 3 minutes. It is 9:08. At 9:11, I'm going to put the link in the chat for registering for next month. Thank you so much, guys, for showing up tonight. Jen, thank you so much. You were completely awesome and so much good information. I'm so excited for everything that I learned tonight, and I'm now even more wanting a freeze dryer than ever after listening to you talk. So I'm gonna have to get on that. But we will see you next month. Bye.